What is up, guys? Happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Korea. Obviously, we got a big weekend again. Of course, college football tomorrow and tonight, NFL on Sunday. But first, we got to do a recap of how we did yesterday. And finally, we are back to our winning ways. 2-0 day for us. First, with me taking that full game under. Like I said, I got it around 49. I take it all the way down to 48. Ended at 41. Obviously, that was, I guess negative kind of game script the way you look at the score, because obviously you see the Bills as underdogs are. I know you're going to talk about it in a little bit. Just absolutely dominated from the get-go. Obviously Tua got concussed, but I think I think that's maybe part of the reason as to why this went under. They brought in Skylar Thompson and he didn't really get anything going. And as soon as the Bills were up by triple digits, they just started running the ball, running the clock out. So obviously that really contributed to this under, because in the first half, I thought this under was dead. I thought this under was dead. It was like 24-10 at one point, and I was thinking, oh yeah, no, this game's over. And then here come, well, obviously the injuries happened, and we don't wish that, but I guess it was a saving grace for us, obviously, with Tua getting injured, the Bills kind of just already being up by double digits, just wanted to put their foot on the brake, not all go, obviously, with James Cook pretty much being the main factor of their offense. So that was a great winner. Obviously, just taking that under, it was a very sweaty in the first half, but obviously the second half, obviously, like I said, full game unders, I thought Vegas was starting to get a little sharp with those primetime unders, but, injuries, any variables like that, obviously can affect the game. You don't wish them, but, they're obviously a factor when you're taking into a bet. Obviously, injuries do happen. So obviously that was a great look and great winner for us, obviously, to get that full game under 48, obviously finished at 41. Bills won 31-10. So obviously, and I know Miami, I think they had a drive where they were getting somewhere, or I think near the end of the game, they were driving with Thompson, but I think they turned over on downs, which was just fantastic to see. So, the Bills just kneeled down and ran the clock out. So, obviously, 48, obviously, that was a great number to get that under at. Obviously, like I said, it was going all the way up to about, going all the way down to about that 48 number. But, I said, don't take it anywhere less. And, hey, say the Bills score, say the Dolphins scored there. Obviously, if they would have kicked, they probably would have gone for two. That would have pushed that over right there. So, obviously, the defense obviously stepped up when it mattered. So obviously didn't have to worry about the full game under in that second half. So that was a great look there in the second half. First half was a little sweaty, but obviously, injuries happen. You don't wish them, but obviously helped for our bet there. So that was a win for me. Obviously the Bills won. So obviously that was a win for you, Ari. What did you take away from your bet yesterday?
Yeah, like you said, it was pretty much sweat-free for the most part. Tua, obviously prayers out to Tua and all that, and hopefully, everything turns out fine, because that was definitely scary when it first happened and his history and all that. But, going back to the game, he threw the first pick on I think it was the first possession of the game, and the Bills scored the touchdown on the 4th and 3 pass to James Cook for the touchdown in the red zone. And then the Dolphins answered right back with the passing touchdown to A-Chain to make it 7-7. And then after that, it was all Bills the rest of the game after that. It was a weird game because Josh Allen only completed 13 passes. Like, he threw the touchdown pass on that opening possession for Buffalo, and then he didn't need to do anything after that because James Cook had 2 more touchdowns rushing, and then they had the pick six too. So I thought it would be more competitive. Like, even though I thought the Bills were going to win, I definitely thought it would be more competitive. Obviously, if Tua didn't get hurt, maybe it's a little more competitive. It was still, I think it was a 21-point game when he got hurt, so it was still basically over at that point for the most part, barring some miracle, obviously. But we talked about Tua struggling against Buffalo, even though this was new pieces on the defense for Buffalo compared to those past years. I guess it's just the scheme that just gave some trouble, regardless of who's playing. And then Josh Allen, again, he's still undefeated on Thursday Night Football, so he knows how to win on a short week and what it takes. And he wasn't even fully healthy. He had a glove on his left hand because he got banged up last week, and he was still cleared to play. But I don't know. I think he only ran 2 times. It seemed like he was a little bit hesitant to run and get his hand banged up even more. So that was also part of it. Overall, obviously, it was a sweat-free win for the Bills.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned, it was pretty much over when Tua, before Tua got injured, but after, obviously didn't even matter. But, he got injured, and Frank the Tank, obviously very well-known media personality, he called him a Hawaiian Daniel Jones, and I couldn't have agreed more that night because he was overthrowing everybody. It looked bad. The first interception, you can't really blame, I guess, maybe Tua, but also blame the receiver because it literally bounced off his nameplate. Receiver wasn't even looking. He was really getting into his route, and Tua already threw the ball. As soon as he turned, bounced off of him. That's interception number one. Interception number two, he overthrew Chosen. I cannot believe his name is Chosen, but he wasn't chosen on that one. I'll tell you that much. Now that man stunk yesterday. What overthrew? I think I guess he slipped on his route, overthrow right to the defender. It was just bad for offensive and defense. You can kind of discredit as well because Miami couldn't stop the run. I mean, it was bad. I mean, there was one play, I think it was the second TD run for James Cook. Jordan Poyer had a horrible angle on him, and you got to think, that's a former teammate of James Cook. How are you not getting the right angle? I don't know what's going on in Miami, but it was obviously all Bills. You mentioned Josh Allen now 7-0 on Thursdays. I think 12-1 against Miami in his career. Just absolutely owns his team. I don't know what it is. Miami, they don't know how to beat the Bills. They can beat the Patriots. They can beat the Jets, but they just don't know how to beat the Bills. So obviously, great look at plus money for you. I know that line was almost, I think, nearing plus 110 territory near kickoff. So the fact that you got it at a little more plus value was great for you as well. So that's a great 2-0 day for us yesterday. I know we got some picks this weekend, but all right, I know you got a game tonight, big matchup in Arizona and Kansas State. I know you got a pick for that. What are you going with tonight in that great matchup? Not even a conference matchup technically, but a big-time matchup under the lights. I know, obviously, Arizona going on the road. They struggled last week, against Northern Arizona. Some people might say it was a look-ahead spot. And K-State, they definitely struggled. Obviously, couldn't really defend the ball at Tulane. I know you probably got a pick in this game. What do you like in this game so far?
Yeah, you're right. Other than the other banner, but I'll just put it here. So, yeah, for tonight's game, obviously we have two games. One, I'm going to Arizona tonight at Kansas State. Like you said, both teams are coming off a weird game where they both struggled in games where they were expected to dominate. I think both teams were kind of looking ahead to this game. I mean, Arizona set out like 7 to 8 starters combined, for different reasons, obviously, but they should get most of the players back for this game. So that's why I'm not too worried. And then Kansas State squeaked out a come from behind win over Tulane that they were like a 10-point favorite over. So both teams, both fan bases, both everything have, questions about both teams. And to me, this comes down to the better quarterback play. I'm not sold on Avery Johnson. I think Kansas State, obviously, they should be favored. They're at home. That gives them the advantage. They should be favored, but I don't think it should be by 7 points. I think 4 to 5 is what I think it should be. I think it would be a pick 'em on a neutral field, and usually home field you get 3 to 4 points, give or take. So I've already seen the line go slightly in favor of Arizona, not the line, the money line spread. At least it's gone down like 30 cents this morning. Obviously Kansas State, they're gonna want to look to run the ball with Giddens. And then I'm blanking on the Colorado transfer.
Is it Edwards?
Yeah, I think Edwards, who they want to get more involved with Giddens. My worry is the dual threat ability of Avery Johnson. Arizona struggled against Dampier in week 1, who also has that dual threat ability. So they're definitely going to need to be better, tackling and all of that, containing him in the pocket. But my score prediction was 34-28. I think it's going to just barely go over, which I think the total is like 59.5 or 60.5. But this just comes down to me to better quarterback play. I think we're going to see them. Last week, T-Mac McMillan only caught 2 passes. I think we're going to see them get him more involved early, just like quick throws. Because I think if he goes deep too much, they're going to bracket him and double cover him, Kansas State. So I think getting him more involved right away, just kind of in the short field and let him kind of create yards after the catches, where you want to get him involved early. But I mean, Kansas State secondary got picked apart by Tulane's passing game last week. So their defensive line, I think, will put pressure on Fafita, and that's where you want to get him. You want him to get rid of the ball quickly. It's kind of weird. The lead running back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, is dealing with these eligibility issues, so I don't think he's going to be playing, unfortunately. But Quali Conley, who's their lead back in his absence, has been really good the past 2 weeks. So I think he should be good enough to get something going in the run game. I think my biggest worry is just the pass rush of Kansas State. But I think, again, just Fifita getting rid of the ball quickly to his receivers, including McMillan, will be key. I think scoring early and getting the crowd out of the game early will also be big to try to quiet the crowd and not get them too hyped up early. Also, I think it should definitely be a one possession game, close game. So I like +7 too, on the spread. Just for them to keep it close. And, I think there's enough value in the ML here with where it's at to where I think it's worth it. And what I think was going to come to a game that's going to come down to the wire. And it's possible the last one has the ball could end up, winning. So that's what I like tonight.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say I'm also on Arizona on the points here. I got it at 7.5 earlier in the week. I know it's gone down to 7. Like you said, I think this line is misread. I think Arizona should be probably 4.
It's down to 6.5 on some books too. Just so yeah.
Look at that. Yeah, already going down to 6.5 on some books. I've seen some people take Arizona money line as well. Just taking them outright. I think it's a great look as well. I think they're the better offense here in this spot here. I'm not a believer in K-State's offense. I'm not a believer in Avery Johnson at all. I'm not a believer in just outside of their defense, which did look obviously very vulnerable last week on the road. Obviously, now you got to play a high-octane offense, and obviously everyone's like, "Oh, Arizona struggled last week." Well, that's called a look-ahead spot. I think Arizona knew obviously they're coming into this game on a short week. Obviously, going to Kansas State. Obviously, playing against Northern Arizona at home, you obviously want to rest your guys, to get ready for that big-time matchup on a short week. So I definitely think Arizona has been ready and preparing for this matchup. So I am also tailing that play for you, Arizona +7. I also got a 7.5. Sprinkling the money line as well. I do love that play for you tonight. In our big game, and pretty much I'd say the game of the night, obviously, between Arizona and K-State, 2 ranked Big 12 opponents, even though it's not a Big 12 official matchup. Obviously, 2 ranked Big 12 teams obviously final out. And obviously this has, significant, implications in terms of potentially the final Big 12 standings. Obviously,
it might be a game of the weekend because I think there's only one other top 25 matchup, which I think is Missouri Boston College. So it's probably game of the week, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say this is probably going to, in terms of offense, I definitely say this is going to be the game of the week. Have you two different tiles of offense? K-State very run heavy. Dual threat quarterback. Run the ball down the next, and then obviously you have Arizona, who obviously can throw the ball. We've seen the duo of Fifita and McMillan plenty of times, especially that week 1 spectacular performance we saw from McMillan. So I do like that Arizona play for you +7 on the money line as well. In tonight's game of the night, and obviously you can say game of the weekend for college football. But obviously we do got some more college football bets. I got plenty of for you here. First, I'm going to do a teaser. I know I haven't done teasers for you, but I do love these 2 teams here just to cover the large spreads here. And we're taking Miami of Ohio +10 and Pitt +the 8.5, teasing those original lines up. I think Miami's around, 3.5, and I know Pitt, think they're all the way down to 2, teasing them all the way up to about 10 and 8.5, get a -130 here. I am a big believer in Miami, Ohio's defense, right? And they're playing at home. And I always say you back a defense when they're playing at home. And Cincinnati, look, their offense is great. Their defense has struggled many times. We saw how they just gave up, 7, I don't forgot how much of a lead they had against Pitt, and they blew that game. And that was a game where Cincinnati was pretty much controlling in the first half. Their defense looked good. I'm thinking Miami of Ohio keeps this game interesting. Look, I know they have a look ahead spot, and I know a lot of people have been taking Cincinnati here, but I think Miami of Ohio makes this game interesting at home. I think when you take a defense at home, especially one of the better defenses, I'd say one of the best teams, honestly, in the MAC this year in Miami of Ohio, I think their defense plays a lot better at home. I'm a believer in Cincinnati, but I don't like the spot for them. Obviously, after blowing that game, on the road here, obviously all the systems point to them, but I just think Miami of Ohio keeps this game interesting with their defense at home. So I'm bumping up. I don't really like that spread right now at 3.5. Obviously, I just think this, I think they keep this within double digits here. So I'm taking Miami of Ohio and bumping their spread up to 10. And then we're going to do the same for Pitt. We're taking theirs against West Virginia, bumping that spread up from 2 all the way up to +8.5 here. Look, this is a rivalry game. It's a backyard brawl. Obviously, West Virginia and Pitt. Last year, it was a very low-scoring game, 17-6. Pitt's offense didn't really do much. This year, it's kind of the exact opposite. Both offenses can really move the ball. For West Virginia, we saw Garrett Green. Now, it wasn't week one we saw Garrett Green. It was the week after because, week one, they got absolutely curbed, and just curb stomped by Penn State at home. But I do like this spot for them on the road. They open up as slight road favorites. I think that Pitt, obviously, if they're going to make this game close, I think, if they can make this game interesting. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, so I think obviously, they're going to make this game interesting. Obviously, personal. You look at Pitt's offense, and they can hang around. Like I just said, they came back against Cincinnati last week, and they have what it takes to make this game interesting. I've seen a lot of people take the over. I'm also on the over as a separate play. I think this game is going to be really high scoring, and I think because of that, I think Pitt keeps this game close. I think Pitt keeps this game within a touchdown. I think they're going to make this fun. Like I said, it's a rivalry game, so I'm teasing both Miami of Ohio and Pitt all the way up here to +10 and +8.5 here at -130. So that's my one teaser play of the weekend for Saturday. And then we're going to go to another over. I know you guys love overs. We're going to Ole Miss, Wake Forest here. We're taking that over 63.5 here. I know it's gone up to 64, but we're taking the over 63.5 here at -125. The only reason is because I love both of these offenses. You look at Ole Miss, right? One of the best offenses in the SEC. And if you look at how fast that offense moves up and down the field, right? Whether it's dart on the long ball or, just how their offense, slowly gets going on the ground. I just love, I told you guys at the beginning, I'm a big believer in this Ole Miss team this year. I think I already had them as a win here. So obviously the cover, I think in terms of a spread, I do like Wake Forest potentially making this game a little bit interesting. I think they covered 3 touchdown spread here, but I'm just taking points. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. Like I said, you have that offense in Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, just really high-powered. They rank first in almost everything. They rank first in passing yards. They rank first in points per game. They rank first in yards per play. They rank second in touchdowns. This offense is for real. And they can run the ball, too. It's not like they can just throw the ball. Obviously, Dart, has made him a name for himself throwing the ball, but they love to run the ball as well. They rank, in the top 20 in terms of rushing yard per game. Obviously, you can kind of credit the fact that they haven't played anyone. They played Middle Tennessee State and Furman, and they only allowed 3 points to either team. So you can't really say, oh, yeah, Ole Miss looks so good. Well, they didn't really play anybody. It's kind of like, Mizzou this weekend. They haven't really played anyone. So because of that, I think Wake Forest at home here, I think they make this game interesting with their offense. Obviously, the one thing about an over, you need quick scoring. And both of these teams are very quick scoring teams. Ole Miss, I think they rank in the top 10 in terms of pace. I think Wake Forest is top 15 in terms of pace. So you have two high scoring teams that love to quick score. I love this over here. I think this is going to be a high scoring game here. I love Ole Miss in terms of a side here. I like Wake Forest to keep things interesting, but we don't need that. We just need points here. And I'm taking the points here at 63.5. I love this over here between Ole Miss and Wake Forest. Obviously, Wake Forest is a very pass-heavy team as well, so that's why I'm backing them. I think with Bachmeier, I don't know what his last, Hank Bachmeier, the quarterback for Wake Forest. He knows how to sling the ball well. Obviously, no picks on the year, 4 TDs. He looked pretty good against Virginia at home, even though on the loss. But obviously, that game I think that game went over at 61. So obviously, you have Ole Miss and you have a couple more points. I think that's a great look for that over. So I'm taking that over 63.5. And then final game for for Saturday, we're taking UCF here. Straight up money line -102 here. I'm not a believer in TCU. Ari, I don't know what it is with this TCU spread. I don't know why it's going the opposite way. Did you know that UCF runs the ball 419 yards a game? That's ranked number 1 in FBS, by the way. Number 1. They're the best running team in college football, right? And it's essentially a pick 'em for them on the road. I love backing a team that can run the ball on the road because if your quarterback can't throw the ball on the road, there's always your running back. And the fact that they have the best running offense in all of college football really, really sets the tone for them. It's a two-back system. I mean, you can kind of say 3, but it's essentially a 2-back system of Harvey and Montgomery. Though that duo that they have alongside, KJ Jefferson, that guy stinks. But anyways, Harvey and Montgomery, that duo is great on the ground. TCU, I'm not a big believer in their defense. Obviously, they played Long Island. Okay, they played Long Island. They won 45-0. They went on the road. They barely scratched out a win against Stanford. They had to come back in that game. And now they got to play a UCF team, obviously, who, yes, they put up points. Let's not dispute that here. This team can put up points. Obviously, they put up 45 and 57 at home against Sam Houston State and New Hampshire. Now they're going on the road here, obviously. I see why a lot of people are taking TCU, just taking back in the home team. Obviously, this is a Big 12 game, so I know a lot of people are taking the over as well. Obviously, with Big 12 defenses, not really playing that much defense. I think this is TCU's kind of first true test of the season. I don't really count Stanford. I think that team is still figuring themselves out, and I'm not a fan of Troy Taylor one bit. I mean, you look at UCF, I think the fact that they're just love to establish the run, I think, when you look at these two offenses, it's more of, can TCU establish the pass, or is UCF going to establish the run? Obviously, TCU, they can throw the ball. They're 15th, in terms of throwing the ball in the country. Obviously, they know how to throw the ball well. But UCF's defense, obviously, very underrated. They only allow about 157 yards a game. Yes, they haven't played anybody significant, but I do think that this game is going to go in UCF's way. I love their defense here, and I love backing a defense on the road. I'm not a fan of TCU's defense as well. And like I said, when I'm backing an offense, I love backing a running offense, especially on the road. And UCF, they're the best team at running the ball. They average 420 yards a game on the ground. They can run the football. So I am backing UCF here on the money line here. Those are my 3 picks for Saturday. Ari, I know you got some things for Saturday. What have you cooked up for this Saturday slate of college football?
Yeah, 3 plays. I'm on UCF as well. I'll get into that later, though. Start off with the Mean Green of North Texas, facing up against Texas Tech, who got absolutely destroyed by your Cougars last week. This is a insanely high total, 69.5, by far the highest on the board. And, I mean, it makes sense because Texas Tech gave up 51 points in week 1 to an FCS school, and Abilene Christian. It went to overtime, but still even 40-plus or whatever it was in regulation is still a lot, obviously, and then almost 40 for the Cougars last week, which I think they probably could have scored more if the game was more competitive too. So I'm the overs, I think, worth a look for just because of that, but I think that, Chandler Morris and North Texas can keep it within single digits. And I think that they could be a live dog potentially. I wouldn't be against sprinkling them on the money line. This is more so just a fade at Texas Tech with how they've looked so far this season, more so defensively. I think offensively, and I know they were without the running back last week. I'm not entirely sure what his status is this week. But, I mean, other ways, it's more of a fade of their defense regardless with this play. So I think it's going to be a shootout, and I think North Texas can keep it within single digits and could potentially, make it weird and keep it close late and have a chance late to pull off the upset potentially. But I'm just going with the +10 for this play here. So going with that, and then fading UCLA again, Indiana -3. UCLA, they should have lost to Hawaii in that first game. The play calling was atrocious by Hawaii late in that game. They were up 10-0, I think, at halftime, and just did not. The play calling was terrible in the second half. And it's kind of weird because UCLA played the first game against Hawaii, and then they had, I guess it would be their bye week, because they were off last week. So now they're at home against Indiana. This is just a pure fade of UCLA. Indiana has looked good so far, but they've played FIU and Western Illinois, so there's not much to take away from those 2 games, obviously, for how they are overall in the season. But I'm just taking the team I believe is to be better against one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, UCLA. Only 3 points on the road, but I think that's arguably one of the least concerning kind of road environments for a team going on the road there at UCLA. So, with all due respect, obviously. So, just taking Indiana to cover -3. I think that's the ABC game, I want to say, on Saturday night. I think
it's actually the NBC game, and I can assure you, you can count how many people are going to be at that game. We'll say it at that.
Yeah. Taking Indiana to cover -3, and then we're both on UCF. Like you said, the line is going in TCU's favor. Went from -2.5 for UCF to basically a pick 'em right now. But it's one of those cases where I'm just fading TCU's offense, like you said, and backing the rushing offense for UCF, and also, I mean, it's a tough road environment for sure in TCU, but KJ Jefferson played at Arkansas, so in the SEC he's played in tough environments before, so I'm not worried about him not playing well in a tough environment because he's played Alabama, Auburn, all these tough SEC environments. So that's why it doesn't concern me too much for me. And again, like you said, one of the best rushing attacks so far in the country. Obviously TCU is probably the best run defense that they'll have played, but we saw Stanford have some success against them in that opening game as well. So I think UCF is a better team. I think a pick 'em makes sense being at TCU. Like I think on a neutral field, UCF would be a 3 or 4 point favorite is where I would put the line at. So I think the line where it's at now makes sense, but I'm still just taking the better team, better rushing attack. And even though, like you said, Jefferson isn't the most reliable quarterback, I think he'll be enough with the rushing attack to be able to come out of Fort Worth with the win.
Ari, for that North Texas one, there's a name that I want people to know of. Chandler Morris. If you don't know, you're going to find out his name on Saturday morning. This guy can throw the ball, okay? Yes, he has a few picks, but this guy can sling the ball, dude. I'm telling you, this guy's amazing. And yes, I know it's probably because, Eric Morris, the coach there, he worked at Wazoo. I've seen him, and he was a little suspect up here, but he's doing a lot great down there. He's developed the quarterback, obviously, and you mentioned Texas Tech, just Swiss cheese defense. I saw personally last week, they couldn't make a tackle. Obviously, it was just bad. They couldn't stop the run last week, and now they're facing a pretty much a similar team in Abilene Christian where they can really throw the ball well. And I think there's a great shot for North Texas to win this game as well. So I do like the potential. Whether maybe North Texas goes up maybe like 3-0. I maybe just hammer or as soon as maybe whatever happens, taking North Texas as a live money line dog potentially. I like that play as well. And then in Indiana, look, UCLA's bad. UCLA's coming off a bye, obviously, after barely scratching out a win on the Big Island in Hawaii. And now they got to come back home and face Indiana, obviously a team that can really run the ball well in the Big Ten as well. And obviously this is, UCLA's second game of the season. And, after what you can assess about after the first game, it was not pretty. It was not good for UCLA. They couldn't really run the ball, like I said. Their offense struggled against Hawaii, and maybe you can say it was the road and the fact they were on and whatnot. I'm not a believer in their offense still. Ethan Garbers is not good, so I am on the under here. I just think UCLA's defense makes this game interesting, but I do lean Indiana as well. I think it's going to be, I think Indiana will easily get this win here, and then our whale of the weekend, Ari, UCF here, taking the Golden Knights on the money line here on the road. I think, we talked about it before the show as well. If that line keeps going in TCU's favor, we'd personally wait potentially. If UCF gets into that plus money potential, that's obviously more value for UCF, and we both love it as well. I think UCF, as you mentioned, fading TCU's offense. I don't believe in that offense as well. More backing, the running offense in UCF. I think they can really establish the run early, and I think they'll do just enough. Even though you mentioned TCU's, run defense is good, they haven't really faced anyone good yet. And Stanford even gave them some trouble as well. So I do think UCF wins this game as well. Obviously, our way of the weekend there. So it's Saturday, best bets. We got some more on Sunday as well. NFL Sunday, I got 2 for you. Technically 3, but I got 2 first. I talked about it a few days ago, but I am on the Seahawks and Patriots to go under 39 on Sunday morning, minus 120 here. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. We're obviously right. You look at the Seahawks defense, and I think defense obviously travels. I think obviously they're going to give Jacoby Brissett or, potentially Drake May if he comes in and gets some playing time. Whoever is the quarterback at the time, right, whether it's either one of them, I think they give him trouble. Obviously, we saw a little bit of how it was last week, and whether it was interceptions, and that obviously that didn't really help with, the defense obviously just going great on the field after Geno Smith gives up an interception. But still, I think, against a really bad Patriots offense that obviously struck that, they did their job against the Bengals. But obviously, you look at that Bengals team, Jamar Chase his head wasn't in there 100%. T. Higgins was still on the sideline. They weren't really – the Bengals always week one. They always come out on the flat spot. And I'm not really, this is more of a buy low, sell high thing on the Patriots here. I'm not really a big believer in this Patriots team right now. Obviously, they're getting a lot of love after week one and being, I think, 3.5-point home dogs. Obviously, a lot of people have been taking the Patriots plus 3.5, but I'm just more on this under here. I think, obviously, you look at the Patriots defense as well, and they performed very well last week against Joe Burrow on the road. I think they do just as well as home here. They may give the Seahawks some trouble here, but I'm just going to take the under here. I'm leaning toward the Seahawks all the time here, but I'm just taking the under here. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Obviously, I think Seattle's defense will do just enough to stop that questionable Patriots offense outside of Ramondre Stevenson. And then obviously on the other side, the Patriots, I think they'll do just enough against the Seahawks offense. And yes, I'm taking DKs over yards. Yeah, Steven, I'm tagging you. I'm calling you out right here. I'm taking DKs over yards. What are you going to do about it? So taking that under, though, taking the under 39 here. Seahawks, Patriots, under 39 full game here. And then we're doing a teaser here. Taking the Cowboys, pretty much pick them. It's money line. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm buying the Cowboys and the Lions spreads down. First, talking about the Lions, buying them down 6 points from 7.5. It's pretty much minus 1.5 here. Look, I think the Lions win this game here, but I know the Bucs are going to make this game interesting with their offense. Obviously, we know this was a repeat of the divisional round game we saw last year. This is obviously the Lions, the Bucs. You can kind of say it's a new Bucs team with their offensive line adjustments, and obviously no Dave Canales there. So, obviously, but still, Baker, I'd say he had a pretty decent week one. And you can say, yeah, it's against the Commanders defense that was really bad. But I still think, obviously, with how the Rams looked against the Lions last week, I think that Baker can make this game interesting. But I know the Lions will definitely get the outright win here. I think the Lions will obviously win this game, going back to the system. Jared Goff indoors, Lions at home, they look good. Whether you want to take overtime or not, I think they do get this win here. Just targeting the Lions here. I think they dominate on the ground here. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, obviously, to get that ground game really going. Obviously they kind of struggled last week. Obviously, not really getting anything going until the second half. But in terms of how in terms of the pass, I think they will do just fine. Obviously, we saw Jameson Williams, obviously the emergence of him be a big piece last week. I kind of expect him to be something like that this week. I know Amon-Ra St. Brown is not going to be, having 5 or 6 or I think 5 receptions or whatever it was. He just did not get targeted at all last week. It was the JMO show, but obviously I know he's going to get his targets as well. Same for Sam Laporta. So I think this Lions offense just does enough here to get the win here. I'm not really liking that 7.5 spread. I know a lot of people are taking the Bucs here. So I'm just teasing the Lions all the way down here to minus 1.5 here just to take them on the win here. I think they get comfortably win by 2 against the Bucs at home. And then the Cowboys, that's pretty much right now like a pick 'em, or you can say PK. I know obviously if you tease the spread from 6, 6 minus 6 is 0. So obviously you're just essentially just taking the Cowboys money line here and teasing that with the Lions here minus 120. Look, everyone tell me the Saints are sharp, right? They beat this team so badly, right? Everyone's telling me, oh, you got to take the Saints plus 6. Oh, they're gonna make things interesting against Dak Prescott on the road. Do you guys remember how good Dak Prescott was at home last year? I think he was like, I think 10 and something against the spread at home, or I think 7-2 or something, or I forgot the total amount. But in the past 2 years, Dak Prescott is really good at home, especially when that line is around 6 or 6.5, pretty much a touchdown. The Cowboys have covered that line, I think, covering at about a 60% clip right now. And a lot of people are saying the sharp side is the Saints, but they got to go on the road here. And are you really convinced that offense is going to keep things close against the Cowboys that just shut down the whole? I mean, yes, it's the Browns' offense, but the Browns' offense on the road, their offense did just enough on the road to obviously get the win, and we didn't even see CeeDee Lamb get in the end zone. I think CeeDee Lamb won get in the end zone this weekend, and I think the Cowboys obviously just comfortably win. I didn't really like the fact that the line was climbing a little bit, but I'm just more teasing. I just know the Cowboys are going to win at home. They're not going to lose to the Saints in some weird genjutsu ridiculous fashion here. I just think the Cowboys get the win at home. We talk about how the Cowboys at home are one of the most profitable systems in football. They love to play good at home in the regular season. In the postseason, they don't know how to play football. But in the months of September to December / January a little bit, the Cowboys are dominant at home. So those are my two-ish kind of plays. The Seahawks and Patriots under 39, DK over his yards, and then the Lions minus 1.5 essentially with the Cowboys money line in a two-team teaser minus 120. I love the Cowboys this week. I think they easily handled the Saints, but there's a lot of people saying that the Saints they make this game interesting. Obviously it's Kamara, and we didn't see much of Olave last week, and maybe it's because Derek Carr secretly hates Olave or whatnot. We don't know what's going on there, but I think the Cowboys just get the job done at home. And then the Lions do the same thing against the Bucs team. Obviously, we know how good their offense is, but I think the Lions do enough, obviously, to get a 2-point win at home against the Bucs here, obviously, who are coming off a big win against the Commanders, whose defense is absolutely atrocious. So those are my two picks for Sunday, the teaser, and then the Seahawks Patriots under. Ari, I know you got some picks for Sunday as well. What do you like for this Sunday?
Yeah, 3 plays for me. Start off with the 49ers, who I think are going to bring the Vikings back down to earth this week after they, you could say embarrassed the Giants last week. I think some of the players were even saying that they felt a little bad for the Giants during that, like later in that game. But, this is obviously Darnold was the backup for the Niners. I think last year I want to say, and he started a couple of games, I think. I think the pass rush is going to get to him. I think it's going to be similar to what we saw them dominate. We saw them dominate the Jets, who are a way better team than the Vikings. I think, their offense will have no problem. Whether they have McCaffrey or not, Jordan Mason will be just fine if he's a starter again. And then their defense is going to, keep Darnold in check. And, I do worry a little bit about Jefferson against their secondary. But, if they're pressuring Darnold all game, it doesn't really matter, that much. So I think Jefferson will probably get his, but I still think the Niners will dominate the game, probably force a turnover or two. I think they're going to win. I think they'll score in the 30s, and they'll hold the Vikings like the low to mid-teens, something like a 31-13, something like that. So I think that they win pretty easily. And then going to the Colts, which this line's kind of weird because it's kind of bounced back and forth between 2.5 and 3.5, but I've seen Malik Willis play, and I'm not sold on him, winning this game for the Packers. And I like this line at 2.5, or if you win by a field goal at the very least, and you cover. We saw it was an impressive game, up and down week 1, I would say, for Anthony Richardson. He only completed 9 passes, but he had 3. He had 3 nice deep balls, and then. He had, I think, 50 yards and a score rushing. I think the Packers they have a good supporting cast. So I think they're not gonna get blown out. I think the Colts are still gonna win pretty handily, pretty easily. And then going to the afternoon, which is essentially a pick'em, close to a pick'em between the Cardinals and Rams. McVay's dominated the Cardinals throughout his coaching career, so. I think it's going to be a close divisional game, obviously, but I think they're just a little bit too banged up on the offensive line, and they're missing Puka as well. I like DeMarcus Robinson. I like Tyler Johnson. I think that they can be productive for the Rams and for Stafford, but I think, it was an impressive week 1 game from the Cardinals against the Bills, and you could say with how the Bills dominated Miami yesterday, that kind of makes it even more impressive that they kept it, as close as they did on the road, in that environment, in Buffalo. I think we're going to see Marvin Harrison get more involved this week. I think we're going to see an emphasis of him getting the ball more, in his first game in Arizona now. And I think the offense, I think it's going to be a shootout, high-scoring game. I think the offense will just be too much for Kyler, with Kyler in the offense, James Conner for the Rams. With the banged up, I think they're missing at least 2 offensive linemen, I want to say, and then also players on the defense and Puka as well. So, I have backing 2 NFC West teams, this week with the Niners and the Cardinals, and then the Colts with Malik Willis under center for the Packers, who has had his chance, and it was with the Titans. Maybe he does better in Green Bay, but I'll take my chances on the Colts, who obviously I was backing all offseason as a team I like this year. So I like them to get their first win here.
Yeah, first off with the Niners, I like that play for you. You mentioned, buying low, sell high spot for the Vikings. Obviously, they come off that amazing game against the Giants where they just absolutely destroyed them. You mentioned some of the Vikings saying that they were feeling bad for the Giants, and that franchise stinks. But obviously here we are, kind of going to my buy low, sell high with the Saints. You're selling high with the Vikings, taking the Niners here on the road here. Obviously, backing, just the fact that the Niners defense obviously will definitely, be there to give Sam Darnold some trouble here. Obviously, you mentioned Jay Jetta is potentially giving that secondary some trouble, but I do like the Niners to do just enough on the offensive side. I don't think the Vikings are really ready for this offense yet because obviously you're playing arguably one of the worst offenses, and now you have to play one of the collective best offenses in the league right now. So obviously, I do like the Niners on the spread there -5. I was already on the Colts as well. I am not a believer in Malik Willis. I think you mentioned he had his one chance in Tennessee. Didn't really get anything going. Obviously, they moved in a new direction with Will Levis. So now he's in Green Bay. And, obviously now he's backing up for Jordan Love. And, I don't really know how he does as a quarterback. And I would rather take, the better quarterback or in this situation, who looked better week one, obviously, who played in week one as well. Anthony Richardson. Obviously, you mentioned, I will say he definitely proved me wrong week one. Obviously, you mentioned, they did cover the spread, close game, but I do think they cover this time. Obviously, on the road here in Green Bay, I don't really like this Packers team this week. Obviously, no quarterback, no Jordan Love. I think even with all the skill pieces they do have around here, I think the Colts, obviously, with their pieces as well as the fact that obviously they do have a good defensive line. I think they give pressure to Malik Willis in the backfield. So I do like the Colts on the spread there -2.5. I got that early in the week as well. And then the Cardinals straight up on the money line. You mentioned the Cardinals played close against the Bills team that just absolutely beat the Dolphins yesterday, and the Cardinals didn't even use their first round draft pick that much. Obviously, Maserati Marv, as some people like to call him, or Marvin Harrison. They didn't really use him that much. Obviously, I think 1 or 2 targets, and obviously Kyler Murray had that controversial midweek quote, obviously saying it's not my job to give him the targets. Well, I think that we're going to see some targets this weekend from Marvin Harrison. I think this could be a big weekend for him. Obviously, finally getting himself introduced into that offense. You mentioned the Rams' offensive line issues with their injuries, and especially coming out from that Sunday night game against the Lions, as well as Puka Nacua. That's a huge loss for this Rams team. Obviously, they're pretty much one of their star receivers. Obviously, they still do have Cooper Kupp on the other side, but you still have to make up for it. And I do love Demarcus Robinson and how Howard Johnson have fit in that system as well. But when you talk about all the offensive absences for this Rams team, and Cardinals played really close with this Bills team on the road, I like them in this almost pick 'em spot here at home. So I do like the Cardinals for you. Ari's 3 plays for the weekend on Sunday with the Niners and the Cardinals, along with the Colts -2.5. All those spreads, and ironically, Ari taking 2 NFC West teams, not the Seahawks. Very interesting. But going to my play,
they're still winning now. They're still winning.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Yeah, they are still winning, Steven. Yeah, you hear us? Yeah, they are winning, by the way. But they are going to go under that total here. That's my play of the weekend here. Seahawks Patriots under 39, along with that teaser with the Lions covering the 1.5, and then the Cowboys pick 'em money line, whatever you want to call it. That's my Sunday plays. Going to Saturday now, going all the way back to Saturday. Obviously, tomorrow's big games. Already got 3 of them. North Texas on the spread, potentially a live dog. Indiana, covering the 3-point spread at UCLA. And then our whale of the weekend with UCF. And then going back to my other 2 plays with the Miami of Ohio and Pitt teaser. And then Ole Miss Wake Forest over. Love the points in that game. You can find, obviously, all of these plays on our Twitter below, AKP Sports. Obviously, we'll have our picks posted today for tonight's game. Obviously, Ari, as mentioned earlier, he is on Arizona plus the 7 and sprinkling the money line as well. Not even really sprinkling. I know you've been on that all week. So as well, taking the Arizona plus the points, but he doesn't even want the points. He wants the full game money line as well. So we'll have that card posted momentarily for you later.
The door is over there.
Yeah, the door's over there. Leave the points by the door. We're just going to take the money line here. And Saturday's picks obviously posted later tonight, and then Sundays as well posted on Saturday. That's going to do it for this episode. That is Ari. I'm Korea. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Of course, Monday, we're going to recap all of how we did this weekend, and of course, preview the Monday Night Football game between the Falcons and Eagles. Primetime Kirk Cousins on Monday night, Ari. Here we go again. So we have that Monday night game to look forward to, but that's going to do it for this episode. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. That's Ari. I'm Korea. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys on Monday.